Getting it started, the first edition of Kane's Soccer Central. Your chief soccer announcer here from WVUM and broadcaster for ACC Network, AJ Mendez. I'm here with head coach Ken Masuhr, and we just started conference play, coach. It's started.
It
It's
did.
all begun
It
in
did. Yeah,
2025.
we're off and running here. I guess in both aspects here. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for creating such a cool platform for our soccer program here. I think it's along the same lines of what we feel like is going to be one of the best soccer programs in the country here in Miami. So it's very fitting to start, a program like this where hopefully we can generate a little bit of excitement for our women and for the overall soccer community in Coral Gables.
And just to start, because this is really the first time we get to dive deep into this on
Yeah.
a program. Um, Tell me a little bit about what your journey was like. You get to be the associate head coach at Vanderbilt, and then an offer comes across that, hey, I could be the head coach at the University of Miami. It's a program that really needed a little bit of a lift off. So just tell me a little bit about what that was like, because obviously you have a family. It's things that sometimes
For sure.
people don't think about. So it's relocating everyone
Yeah.
to Florida. So tell me a little bit
Yeah,
about
I
that.
think I mean first, my career started at the University of Pennsylvania. It's worth, um, bringing that up too because it's also the idea of being able to coach high academic, performance-driven women was always kind of something that I was drawn towards. Being in the Ivy League and then going to Vanderbilt for 10 years and the achieving the success that we had there, in a short time was awesome. And you know, learning from someone like Darren Ambrose and I was with him at Penn too, and KK was there. My associate head coach was there with us at the University of Pennsylvania. Um, I think the University of Miami was always one of those programs that um, you know I guess you could say underachieved because for at least a long time, not since the beginning of the inception of the program, they had some success there too, and I don't want to discount that. But the last you know recent times, I feel like it's underachieved in terms of what the university is known for in terms of athletics and um, what they're striving for. And when we got the job at Vanderbilt in 2015, I think there was a cycle where there was a changeover. I don't remember the exact year, somewhere around 2017, maybe in that period between 2017 and 2020. And I was keen on the job then, but I don't necessarily know if I was prepared to sit in the chair and be a head coach. The second time around, when it came open again in 2023, I was in a position where I felt I wanted a bit more out of my career. My daughter was just entering third grade. My wife was teaching at the University of Nashville, and we were about a year away from my son um, going into kindergarten. So our thought process was, take the year, at least come and try first of all to get the job because that's the first hurdle you have to face. And then once you get down here, you know get after it. My wife was gracious enough to kind of say, hey, you go put your best foot forward down there. We'll stay here, finish out the year, and allow you to set up the foundation for the program, which I think we did in the spring of 24. um, then summer came and we decided what was best for our family was our daughter to stay through third grade at USN, my wife to continue to teach and coach, and then my son Miller to finish out his academic progress at the Acorn School at Vanderbilt. We've now been here. They're both at Sunset Elementary, right around the corner. My wife teaches at Gulliver, so we had a really thoughtful transition in place. to hopefully come here and really kind of hit the ground running. So, yeah, it is not just a Ken career decision. It's a full family decision that has to be talked about over time. And that those conversations started happening, I think, towards the end of my time at Vanderbilt, as things started happening for us to potentially look at head coaching opportunities. And obviously, the University of Miami, it has the academic reputation. It has the obviously the most competitive soccer conference in the country, and then of course the city, and being in Coral Gables, and being in Miami, and ultimately getting the diversity that we wanted for our children to grow up in was also like an enormous factor too. And like frankly, you don't get a lot of that in a lot of soccer programs, but universities around the country, and we wanted our kids to be around that. So it really became, when the job was open and I got offered, it was really a very thoughtful but quick decision. Like, this is going to be incredible.
And you get here, obviously you have to kind of start to build in the spring. Obviously it's not as formal of a season as the fall is, but you have to start to build. There's players that played previously, of
Mm-hmm.
course, under Sarah Barnes, still on the squad. You have to bring in a class of freshmen for your first fall, and then bring in additional transfers and stuff in this era of college athletics with NIL, high turnover. So how do you kind of go into your first season managing that, of saying, I need to find a balance within my program of having the right players from the right places, and kind of getting that mix of different internationals and players from other schools?
Yeah, the first season was an adventure. Let's talk about the spring first of all. We wanted to put in, in our first coaching staff, we sat down and we talked about a lot about what we wanted that first spring to look like, and it was geared around setting a standard for what the expectation was in training. And it was also around setting the expectation and the standard for what we felt um, core behaviors of high functioning teams, what that looked like, and how to implement that. And that was a semester long conversation with the coaching staff and the current you know group of young women that were there, and we settled on being disciplined, being selfless, and being relentless. And I felt that those were the core of what every person can give every single day to try to be the best version of themselves. We didn't talk about arriving on time. We didn't talk about study hall hours. We didn't talk about their academic responsibilities. We talked about being selfless every day with themselves and with their teammates. We talked about being relentless in the face of adversity, what that looked like, and we talked about being disciplined. And the biggest piece of those three things, if they do those three things really well, then it allows them to be academically responsible. It allows them to be committed and disciplined on the field. It allows them to put their best foot forward every single day. And what I love about creating that opportunity was every single morning they could wake up and say, I'm going to commit to three very basic ideas. And then every single night when they got in bed at night, they can say, I was either great, average, or poor at these three things. And they could decide for themselves. And then as well, they could talk about whether or not their teammates reached those things as well in each interaction. So, yes, the soccer was important, but it was more about putting in the place, our vision of what high functioning and highly successful people, what they do. And again, like, not to say anything about previous staff and previous players that were here, but the idea was like, let's rally around these three things first and then go from there.
And in a little bit of the recruiting process,
Right.
maybe the evaluation
Yeah.
process, what was it that you were noticing about players that either you thought fit or didn't fit, or players you would offer, not offer, kind of, really making that match? Everyone talks about whether it's their dream school or
Yeah.
where they should end up, but what is it that you kind of noticed in your first couple seasons now of recruiting, of saying, okay, I think this is a player that can fit into what we're trying to build, or not necessarily, I don't want this player here, but maybe it's not, really the best fit.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just have to be really intentional on, describing what a University of Miami soccer player looks like. And in those conversations, whether it be transfer portal or recruiting, both folks have to figure out if that's what that individual player is looking for, right? And whether or not, I've got to evaluate and figure out whether or not those folks are able to do those things. And so we talk, in evaluation of players, we talk about them being mentally and physically tough, competitive, hardworking, coachable, and the last piece is they have to have a sense of passion and energy and personality about them, not just, being tough and fit and competitive. Those are all great things, but you also have to have the personality and the energy that is, required, or the passion about wanting to do well. And, those things come out in a number of different conversations with people through, again, portal, their coaches, people around, you know, influential people in that person's circle. Those questions are vital, I think, in learning about each person that you allow. And again, like I say, allow, but we talk about being a privilege coming here to the University of Miami. We talk about it, being something that they choose to do and make a choice about being a part of every single day. But our coaching staff has to be the gatekeepers to that, because it would be a disservice to the women that came before them if you know if those folks just get to put on the jersey, but without buying into the things that we find valuable. So, and again, like those things are those excuse me, those the only way you find those things out by having real, honest, and intentional conversation.
And through a little bit of the evolution of the coaching staff, obviously now you add, like, and this is something that most people probably not thinking about, kind of back of mind, but you add Hannah Burnick.
Yep.
You get someone who is behind the scenes. You add a goalkeeper coach.
Correct.
Obviously you still have Peter on the staff. You elevate Kelly, but take me through a little bit of what your mindset is behind, okay, I have to continue to build.
Correct.
But obviously, even though you're at the head, you have to have people around you who also see that vision.
Yep.
And who also, bring their own individual things to the table. So how do you really look at, continuing to build that and have that evolve into what you're looking to do here in Coral Gables?
Yeah, really great question, because it can't be overlooked that having somebody, like you called her Kelly. I haven't heard her being called Kelly, I think.
Coach KK.
Yeah. But it's, maybe only at the airport do I ever hear Kelly. But KK is, not only a incredibly competitive person, but she's also a very dear friend. And KK is incredibly gifted in being able to kind of reground me in a way that is like, hey, this is really great what you've been doing, or hey, we need to tailor the message this way. Because again, like, I've never been a Division I female soccer player before. KK was. She was involved with the English national team as well. Like, she's seen the highest level of women's football, and she can put herself in, now it's been a little bit a while, but she can put herself in the shoes and the seats of our players, and give me, sometimes feedback that is, hard to hear, but also incredibly valuable. And I couldn't be happier and more proud to share this with somebody that I've known for 15 years. Peter John was on the men's side and brings a different aspect to this, in that, there's a way that he communicates with our players that is refreshing and also very real and raw, that, maybe, again, he's able to reach them in ways that I'm not as well. Adding Juan this season has been incredibly beneficial because I think he brings, again, the idea of a Spanish speaking person in Miami is, and being able to recruit internationally and draw folks here is going to be incredibly valuable. But I also think he's a student of the position. He's a very, very good coach, super detailed orientated, um, and just loves the profession of coaching. Um, and obviously adding Hannah, she has a national championship under her belt, so she knows how to manage large groups through a really difficult and strenuous um, season, both off season and on. And she has high aspirations and high um, goals for herself at what she wants to do after this. And she's on a pathway to be, I think she could be easily the director of operations at a premiership club down the road, because she's just so detailed and so organized in getting, putting our players on a pathway to success.
And part of that pathway to success, I think, also, of course, more than anything, on the field in non-conference play. So obviously, you guys have started very strongly this season, even more than last, which was still a good start again, and only your first season as head coach. But so far, 5-1-1 through non-conference play this season, 3-1-2 last season. How have you seen the team kind of change? Obviously, the squads are very different, but the approach of players buying in and really getting behind the message and everything of, let's take advantage of these games, let's challenge ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
let's see where we're at,
Correct.
and let's get prepared to go play the toughest games anywhere in the country.
Yeah, I think last season we found ourselves, and myself included. Again, like I don't have the perfect I don't have the perfect roadmap to all of this, but I have a decent idea of what I want it to look like. And last year was we were excited to be winning games, and this year we expect to be winning those games. And the expectation should be from the University of Miami's soccer program is that through our non-conference schedule we want to be dominant. And I felt like for 7 out of all 7 games that we started with, we very easily could have been 7-0. And that's the learning curve that um, new players, and I say young players. We have some players that have only been in the program for 3 or 4 months. Some have been only in the program 6 months. But almost all the players haven't been here for my first 18. So like, the idea is that in in a short amount of time, we've been able to put in the things that we find really important to win those games. And frankly, and this isn't a credit to the girls that are here. The lessons that they're learning last fall, last spring, they're applying them now. And games that we may have drawn last year or potentially even lost, we're now putting them into the win column. And that's incredibly important as we, again, like you mentioned, get into the heart of ACC play.
And with now a game like VCU coming up, where again you kind of go, you get to see two ends of the ACC kind of top
Mm-hmm.
spectrum. You get to see a top 25 team and a top 5 team, and then now you get another non-conference game to kind of wipe the slate clean, a little bit more preparation before you jump in to the Louisvilles and the
Mm-hmm.
SMUs and then the FSUs. So how do you kind of go into that game to say, okay, we need to continue to prepare, we need to continue, of course, to win, but what are the things that you're kind of asking of your
Yeah.
players to say, hey, this is our goal for this game to
Mm-hmm.
continue to look forward to the ACC?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was, again, we had an open weekend after what was arguably one of the hardest you know parts of the schedule that we've had to face, which was, I think, 5 games in just under 2 weeks, which is a lot. um, I wanted to, like you're saying, wipe the slate clean. But I think each of the non-conference games allowed us to experience a different challenge. And we're going to go up to VCU, and they've been a historically incredibly gritty and tough, and the A10 is a conference that, is unbelievably competitive. And the idea is that, if we want to win in the ACC, we're going to have to learn how to win and be, and I say win, I be successful, in a number of different ways. That might mean, earning a draw. That might mean getting 3 points. It might mean, going away and managing the game different. So, going away to VCU at this part of the season, it's going to teach us another lesson about, again, the travel's not easy, right? They're in the middle of school and exams and college game day coming this weekend, and our football team is having success, and volleyball as well. Like, there's a lot of things going on here that is outside noise. So for us to recycle and kind of put our heads down again and drive, to another, like a game like VCU, it allows us to refocus and try to make it more about us.
And just to kind of close this first episode here on Kane Soccer Central, I want to understand a little bit more about, obviously, like you said, the schedule is condensed. It's tough. There's injuries. Players have to step up, step into new roles. What do you tell your players about not only just we've seen now freshmen like Amanda Peck come in, obviously, early in the season. Sam Morella slots into a center back role, which is, almost always a 90-minute role. What do you tell your players about, just being the next player up, having that mentality, and also just when you have tough games, against these teams, maybe it's a Wake Forest where you go down early, they add a couple goals, or a Duke game where you just know you're going to be kind of defending for most of the game. How do you tell your players to have that mentality to stick through it, to stay together, and to just kind of believe in one another, to say we can get through this as a group?
Yeah, I think first thing you have to focus on is the process of what it takes to win games. Winning is a byproduct of a lot of things that go right. And if all you focus on is the end goal of, I want to win X game, then you have a chance of missing all of the details and, frankly, the joy of, competing hard in training and preparation and, executing when it's your moment to execute. You miss all those things looking too far out in front of you. So, what we talk about with our team is, continue to use and enjoy all of the moments that are leading up to what eventually we'll find success in. So we you don't walk on the field, you don't walk into a season and just proclaim yourself champions. You train and you work like champions, and the championships will hopefully, come down to follow. And that was an old, I think I read that on somebody's chalkboard somewhere years ago, and it really stuck with me. And we talk about, all of these players consistently. We use it as a in our glossary here. We say build your own house. So you build and work on your house as if you're building it for the president of the United States or someone else. You build it as you use the best ingredients. You work on it as best you can, and you put all of your time and hard work into it as if it was your own. Because, like you mentioned, there might be an injury, there might be something that happens down the road where your number's called, and if you're not building your own house that way, and you're taking shortcuts, and you're not managing your time, when the time comes for you to get called upon, you're not going to be ready. So we just talked to all of our players about being ready, about continuously pushing each other to the hardest that they can, so that way when we come into these ACC games or any games that we play other opponents, it becomes second nature. And I think our freshmen and, frankly, our sophomores, and look, I am incredibly pleased with where we are at the moment, and incredibly pleased with how hard the team's willing to work for each other. And that's not me. That is their own commitment to themselves and to each other that they talk about every single day. And it's exciting to be a part of a team like that.
And it's excellent to hear how this team is developing. Canes Soccer continuing their season 5-3-1 so far, and they will go to Richmond, Virginia to face VCU this Thursday, September 18th, and the next week still on the road, Louisville on Thursday the 25th, and SMU on Sunday the 28th. We thank you for listening to our first episode of Cane Soccer Central here with head coach Ken Masuhr. I'm AJ Mendez, and we will catch you next week.